Alright listeners, welcome back to the Unseen Hour. We're deep in the forest now, and this chapter, we're looking at the patterns because one-off sightings are easy to dismiss, right? People get spooked, misidentify a bear standing upright, maybe even play into their own expectations. But what we're seeing with Bigfoot reports isn't random, it's recurring, deliberate, and in some places, it's practically routine.
Absolutely. The idea that these encounters are isolated is one of the biggest misconceptions. If you start mapping them, overlaying dates and locations, you begin to see clusters, corridors of sightings that span decades, even centuries, places where locals know better than to walk after sunset, even if they won't say why.
Take the so-called Sasquatch Highway, a line of consistent sightings stretching from Northern California all the way into British Columbia. People call it folklore, but there's a pattern of behavior, migration, even seasonality. And I've seen some researchers treat it almost like tracking a species, plotting movement across old-growth forests, river systems, and remote valleys.
And the detail that fascinates me most is how consistent the features are across those patterns. Witnesses from totally different areas describe the same things: musky odor, a low humming, or clicking sound just before a sighting. Bent trees shaped into arches, sometimes twisted off 10 feet above the ground, and then the tracks. Always the tracks.
Let's talk about the footprints, because to me, they're one of the most disturbing elements, not just because they're massive, or because of how deep they sink into the soil, but because of where they lead. Or more often, don't. I've seen photos, Sarah, of prints that stop in the middle of a muddy trail, like something was walking and then simply disappeared.
Yes, and that vanishing act isn't unique. There are dozens of reports where the prints begin out of nowhere or end just as abruptly, sometimes leading right up to a cliff with no fallen debris, no drag marks, nothing. Some researchers chalk that up to weather erosion, but in many cases, it's fresh snow, fresh mud, impossible to fake without leaving signs of tampering.
One listener from British Columbia wrote in after our last season, said he was hiking off-trail with a friend and they found a single line of footprints just 1 foot, repeating every 6 feet like a pogo stick, and each print was clear, deep, and not melting. He said it made him feel like gravity had briefly shifted around them.
That's incredible, and that one-footed stride shows up in older indigenous stories as well, describing beings that don't move like us, that glide or leap rather than walk. And again, it points to something that isn't simply biological. It might have a foot, but the way it uses it defies natural movement.
There's also the smell, and I know it sounds silly to some, but witness after witness talks about it. Not just a skunky animal smell, but something deeper, almost chemical, like wet copper, rotting eggs, and burnt hair all mixed together. And it doesn't linger, it floods the air suddenly and vanishes just as fast.
Exactly, and it's often described right before people report the sensation of being watched or followed, like the scent arrives just ahead of the presence, almost as if the forest is warning you. I've even spoken with people who left the woods vomiting, overwhelmed by that smell and an oppressive, crushing dread they couldn't explain.
That brings us to the emotional impact again, because this is more than physical evidence, it's psychological. Some hikers say they hear breathing behind them, but turn around and see nothing. Others hear footsteps that mirror their pace, speeding up or slowing down with them, and it only stops when they leave the area entirely.
And those are the lucky ones. I've read about campers who wake up to find deep prints circling their tents. Or worse, find the tent itself moved slightly, rotated just a few degrees during the night. Nothing taken, no damage, just moved, as if to say, I was here, I could have done more.
One of our more chilling submissions came from a man near the Hoh rainforest, who said he woke up at 3 a.m. to a light thump on his tent. Assumed it was a branch, but then it happened again and again, perfectly timed, like a knock. When he opened the flap, he saw nothing, but the trail cam he'd set up caught a partial image. Just a sliver of something massive, covered in dark hair, barely visible between two trees, and one eye glowing, not reflecting, glowing.
That single eye, that's rare, but I've heard it before, especially in places where the land is believed to be sacred or protected. It's not always a full figure people see. Sometimes it's just an outline or a glint of awareness in the dark, and the moment you try to focus on it, it vanishes.
It's like we're only allowed to glimpse the edges, like there's something about this presence that's always just beyond the full frame. And I have to ask, Sarah, at this point, do you think Bigfoot is hiding from us, or are we just not built to see it?
That's the real question, isn't it? Maybe it's not that Bigfoot avoids us. Maybe we're incapable of perceiving it fully, like our senses aren't calibrated for it, and what we get are fragments. Leaks from something ancient and intelligent that simply doesn't want to be known.
After the break, we'll be looking at how technology has influenced sightings and whether modern tools are helping us get closer, or if they're only making the mystery more elusive. This is the Unseen Hour, and the forest isn't finished with us yet.